Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Koretz, for what you just asked there. First of all, Miguel, take a deep breath and tell us where we're going to be over the next 3 or 4 months. Your best case scenario of what we need to do and worst case scenario.
Next 3 or 4 months, we will have adopted a budget which addresses our entire shortfall, $585 million. Given the direction that we received, about $300 million of that will be by the elimination of positions. And then the other nearly $200 million will be done through some form of borrowing that we're going to have to engage in. Hopefully we could mitigate the percentage of the borrowing by identifying other revenues as the ones that have been discussed as it relates to establishing a target. We'll know in 3 or 4 months how much we hope to save as a result of reducing all contracts by at least 10%. We'll know how much we'll save by having a real plan to go after those individuals who haven't paid taxes. We'll also have a better sense of any other revenue that have been explored by your council, for everything from ambulance billing. So whatever, my goal is to borrow the least amount, and those various elements that have been described so far will help mitigate that. But when we start the new fiscal year, we should be in a place where we know exactly what we're cutting, the operational impact for that. We've established a strategy to mitigate those impacts to the extent that we can. We've established strengthened our credibility with our bond rating agencies so they understand that we have a plan in place and have implemented that plan, and spend the next year essentially implementing the budget that your council has adopted and working on the various initiatives in the 3-year plan to generate savings and efficiencies for the following years. That is my hope in terms of the most optimistic place that we're in. They're very difficult decisions and actions that have to take place to get there, but the goal is to be in a place in the next 3 months where we understand very clearly what we've done and where we're going. The worst case scenario is where we don't know those things, where we're still in a situation like we were this year, where we adopt a budget that has a huge hole in it. We begin the new fiscal year working on fixing that hole, and we don't really adopt any solutions to address that hole until the late summer, early fall. So we don't generate the kind of savings that we anticipated to mitigate that hole. Doing that will result in a higher interest rate to engage in our day-to-day borrowing, which we do early in the year to pay off our pension costs. Will limit our abilities to engage in whatever borrowing we need to do to address the gap, and will further deteriorate the confidence that our bond rating agencies have in our ability to address our stuff. $300 million, we still have $185 million problem.
What is likely to happen to that facility in some of our more challenged neighborhoods?
Well, I think the blueprint has already been there. If you look at when Prop 13 hit and we started abandoning parks, the parks didn't just disappear.
Did you say abandoning or abandoning?
Abandoning.
Okay,
we stopped doing programs at parks across the board. Those parks became dark, they became havens. There's going to be some group that's going to fill the void in that community park. If we have positive programming there, it's a positive program. But if we allow it to, if we abandon it, the city, I would venture to say we will have an undesirable element go into these parks and start taking over.
You know, when you bring up the 2008 dire news that we all heard, seems to me, I remember specifically asking on whether or not a hard hiring freeze at that time was necessary, and I believe I was told, looking back, did we hire anybody in the last 2 or 3 years that now looking back, we maybe should have had a hard hiring freeze at that
There was
point?
a hard hiring freeze with the managed hiring process, only revenue producing and special funded positions, with the exception of, positions that were critical, have been filled for the last year.
We're
and a
really
half.
changing the quality of life for people who live in Los Angeles and probably are already
Thank you, Ms.
having a tough time at homes. I'd like to bring back that opportunity to ask LA residents if they would like to save our parks by adding $1 to their every other month DWP bill voluntarily, if that would be something they would agree to do.